there foxes. For the next activity you're going to be making some salt dough, and so there's a little bit of DT, a little bit of making involved and following instructions and following a recipe to make your own salt dough, which is a bit like a homemade Play-Doh. And then you're going to be shaping it, making something that hopefully you'll enjoy for yourselves, but also making something for somebody else. I'd like you to make a gift for somebody today. So this is the little gift I've made. So this is made of salt dough. It's a little heart necklace. Okay, so it can go around somebody's neck like that. Little tiny heart necklace made of salt dough. So salt dough's been homemade, then it's been baked, and then it's been painted. So part of what you do today you will need adult supervision for, because I don't want you using the cookers completely on your own if you are baking, because they will be quite hot. Okay, so what I've got on the table is some flour. Normally I use plain flour, but none of the shops seem to be selling it at the moment, so we're going to try self-raising. I've got some normal table salt, a little bit of water and an empty cup. I've gone for a really small one. This is an espresso one, because I only want to make a small amount of salt dough. So it's quite a good way of just keeping the quantities down if you're not allowed to use too much flour, but you can always make more if you're allowed. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is get some flour, and you could use a spoon, but I've got a small enough cup just to dunk in here. Now I've filled that up maybe 3/4 of the way. I'm having a look at where it is in my cup. I'm just going to pour that into the bowl. And salt, I want the same. So I'm going to pour that in there. Having a little squeeze to hurry it up. Okay, that's about the same amount. So an equal amount of salt and flour. Pour those together. Okay, and give them a little bit of a mix. Now at this point, if you wanted to add a couple of drops of food colouring or a little bit of glitter, then you can. Or you can even add a couple of drops of lavender oil, to make it smell nice. At this point, you're going to add a little bit of water, but do not pour all of your water in, because you won't need all of that. What I'm going to do is just add a little splash, and then mixing it together. And it's going to start to form a little bit of a dough. And in fact, I probably don't want, I'd probably like a spoon. Harry, would you like to pass me a teaspoon, please? Because I can see me pouring too much water in and ruining my salt dough. Thank you very much. So you can see so far, really simple. An equal amount of salt and flour. You can use more flour and more salt if you want to make more, or you can halve it and make it less. As long as they're the same, as long as however much you add, it's the same. And then once they're mixed, you're just adding tiny little bits of water at a time. And then I'm giving it a mix and a squeeze. And you can see it's starting to turn into a bit of a dough, but it's still too crumbly. So I'm going to add another, maybe 2 teaspoons. Once you think it's nearly there, you want to be really careful and don't add any more than a couple of drops at a time. But I think I'm a little bit off at the moment. It's quite nice to get your hands messy, and it's not too tricky to clean this up. Okay, so you can see it's starting to look a lot more like a dough now, so I'm not going to need much more water. You can always add more water, but you can't take water out if you put too much in, so be very careful. So I think I'm going to just add 1 more teaspoon for now. Oh, fab, that's nearly there. what you've basically made is just like a homemade Play-Doh. So you can play with this just like Play-Doh. But the really nice thing about salt dough is that you can create models or jewellery, and you can bake them in the oven, and then they go really, really hard. So they'll stay in the right shape. I think this is just about right. I hope I'm not going to spoil it now, but I'm going to put maybe half a teaspoon in now. Just a tiny little bit. I hope that wasn't too much. I think it just needed a tiny bit more moisture. So the hardest thing is probably adding the water, but as long as you're patient, you don't pour it in and you use maybe a teaspoon, then you can't really go wrong. If you rush it, then you can very much go wrong. Or if you try pouring it straight from the cup, like I was originally going to do. And it's absolutely magic, look. Like I said, if you wanted to add maybe a couple of drops, maybe 2 drops of red food colouring, that would probably make it a nice pinkish red, or some green, then you can make different coloured doughs. You can put glitter in it. I quite like the feel of it like this, because glitter can make it feel a little bit rough. If you leave it like this, it's almost white, and you make something and you bake it, then it's quite easy to paint because it's a really pale colour. So you might not want to use food colouring if you want to paint it. But what you can always do is split your dough like this, and you could have some white dough, and then you could colour a little bit of it, and then you've got some coloured dough and some white dough. Okay, so I have had a little play with the salt dough, and I've made a few things that have now been in the oven. So little foxy face, just a little donut pendant which could go through the necklace. Some little flower decorations on. Little heart pendant. So if you make something like this, there you go. If you make something like this, then it's really important to have a decent hole in the middle, and I will show you how to do that in just a second. This pendant it's a pendant that's got a little hole there, peas in a pod, because it might make a nice little gift to say to somebody that you are peas in a pod, like a little family gift. Peas in a pod is an expression that means you're all similar and you belong together, so it's quite nice. Another little pendant that could go on a necklace, and that's a tribute to the NHS. Quite messily done, but as being a bit experimental. The print for that has been made with some Lego, so you can experiment with printing. And my personal favourite, but I can't take credit for it, this was Sophie Moana fans. You might recognise this pendant. And what Sophie did to give it that shimmer, I don't know if you can see the shimmer, but she added a little bit of shimmery eyeshadow to the paint. And then she's just put some glue on the back, but if you put a hole through, you could also attach, and this is just an old necklace chain. Okay, so you'll have your salt dough, and obviously you need a plan, but you can just play with it for a bit first before you decide what you want to do. So I'm just going to have a little bit of a play with this one. You can use a rolling pin, but I think if you use a rolling pin, it tends to get stuck to the table. So just like when we've done clay at school, you get it nice and soft. If it feels a little bit too crumbly, just literally dunk your finger in a little bit of water and dampen it slightly, so you're not adding too much water, but that should stop it being crumbly. And then you can start to make some shapes. So you can just start with a nice circle. If you have any cookie cutters, then sometimes you can make a nice shape using a cookie cutter. But we'll just start with a nice round circle, and you can kind of squish it and press it down as you want. And then it's worth having a look around your house, because you'll be able to find things like this perhaps, which is a hair clip, but the end of that hair clip is slightly raised, can you see? And so it makes a really nice print. and close for you. You can see that beautiful pattern has been printed into the clay, or the dough rather. I also found in my room this old necklace which has some cute little star pendants on. So again, you can, but be careful if you're pushing this in not to use a big chunky finger, because big chunky fingers tend to then just leave a swell. So use something a bit smaller, just squish it in but not all the way through, and then try when you're lifting something out to do it carefully and quickly. And if I just show you the Lego again, I'm pretty sure everyone's got this lying around. Nice even push, bring it back. And you can see you can make different different patterns by squashing things in like that. So it's definitely, I know that one's quite subtle, but it is quite nice, especially if you use some nice colours on there. Okay, so what you are going to do with yours is you can have a play, you can make whatever you like, but amongst the things that you make, it would be really nice if you were to make a gift for somebody. So I'll show you how I did the heart pendant. So you choose your size. So I'm just going to do a little one, nothing too big. And you just want to start squashing it so it's slightly flattish. You don't want anything too thick like this, otherwise it won't work in the oven. So you want something a little bit thinner. You can start pushing it with your fingers into the correct shape, the shape that you want. So heart's a really nice, simple shape, especially if you're giving it away as a gift. It ends up being a little bit strange at all. You can always use a spreading knife, so just a normal knife, and you can trim away the edges. Okay, just like that. And then to make it a pendant, you can either put the hole in the middle, but I think for a heart shape, it's quite nice if you have a hole just to one side. You can use a cocktail stick, could use a pencil, it might be a bit chunky, or the end of a paintbrush works quite well. Don't put it too near the edge or it'll crack. So you need it in slightly. And if you just give it a little wiggle and then push it through, and just try to be really delicate with everything that you do. Okay, so there's a little heart pendant. So what you can start doing is making a few different things. So maybe that's a nice gift for somebody, and it doesn't have to be a pendant, it could just be a nice ornament, a nice little thing that they can have on the side. It could be somebody in your family, it could be a neighbour, because you could put it into a little bag and knock on their door and leave it on their doorstep for them, something to cheer them up. It could be a flower, or if you know that they particularly like something. So Sam Field, you're obviously a bit of a master at making flags, so maybe you know a favourite holiday spot for somebody, you could make them a little Italian flag or something. I think that's what we did the last time we had the clay. Or you could do something completely brand new. Another fun thing to do with it would be to make, let's see if you can guess what it is. Oh, I'm out of the shot there. Okay, well I'm not going to tell you just yet as I'm making it. So while I'm making it, I'll tell you about baking it. So you'll need to put the oven on to about 150 degrees Celsius. I don't think it matters too much if it's a little bit above or a little bit below. Shouldn't matter too much. And on the internet it usually says to cook it for maybe up to 2 hours, but these baked in about 1 hour. I think the smaller things bake quicker, and the best thing to do is just to keep an eye on it, and if it starts changing colour slightly, then it's time to take out of the oven. But of course, using the oven, you will need a grown-up's supervision, because the trays in there are going to get very, very hot, and I don't want anybody to burn themselves. Okay, so hopefully that is starting to look a little bit like a burger, and it can be quite fun to make some pretend food, maybe for your toys or your dolls. So I don't really mind what it is that you make, but I would like at least one of the things you make to be a gift for somebody else. This activity does come with a warning though, because when these are cooked, they do look quite a lot like biscuits, and they have quite a nice smell because of the flour, but they have a lot of salt in them. And so if they're left lying around and a pet gets hold of them, maybe a dog, it can make the animal very, very ill because there's too much salt in there. Nobody should be eating these. So please, 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 if you've got animals at home, like a lot of you have, keep your salt dough out of reach. Don't leave it on the floor. Don't leave it where a doggy or another animal can get hold of it, or a little brother or sister. And of course, don't put it in your mouth yourself. Some of the recipes online say you can use half the amount of salt. So if you want to experiment with the different quantities, then you can. Let me know how you get on. I would love to see a picture of what you make. And I hope that you enjoy having a fun.